Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2 is a historical RPG with low fantasy elements set in medieval Europe. The story is set during the historical battle between Bohemia and Hungary. The player plays as Henry, a squire for a lordling, Lord Capon. The game plays out as kind of a buddy adventure comedy between Henry and Lord Capon. The two become stranded in the countryside and must fare for themselves without Capon's noble connections. For a while, anyway. Eventually, they do regain their status, and they join rebel lords fighting for the freedom of Bohemia against King Sigismund, Hungary's tyrannical rule. Kingdom Come: Deliverance 2 is basically an Elder Scrolls game at its core. There are similar skills which level up over time independently of the player's main level. The character is not locked out of any skill tree and may progress in any way they want. And the core experience is divided between combat, stealth, and dialogue. However, Warhorse has innovated and developed on nearly every aspect of the Scrolls games, so that I think the game stands on its own as a totally unique experience. What I really like about the game is that I think it took the core philosophy of the Scroll games to heart when developing the game's mechanics. At those games' core, and the reason I've always enjoyed the Elder Scrolls games, is that there is an emphasis on immersion for the player. They want to simulate more than just an action movie game. They want to simulate a life, a world the player can live in, so that when the player steps into the shoes of their character, they feel like they truly inhabit that world. Warhorse Studios has taken this same approach to their own game and managed to add new depth of immersion to almost every basic mechanic of the Elder Scrolls games. Warhorse doesn't just copy the Elder Scrolls formula. There is no magic in KCD's world. In fact, it takes place on Earth, in medieval Czech Republic, the Kingdom of Bohemia. The quest system is different as well, and it reminds me more of the quest system from the Witcher games. Dialogue takes place in a more cinematic format as well. Finally, there is no customization of the character in the beginning. Everyone who plays KCD 2 will play as Henry, love him or hate him. The core mechanics are all Scrolls-like, all the way, but each of them has a new twist. Similar to the lock-picking mechanic from the Scrolls games, each skill has an associated minigame. But these minigames are blended seamlessly into the game so that it feels very natural. When blacksmithing, Henry will be at a forge, heating up metal, hammering the hot metal into form. When sharpening a blade, Henry sits down and uses a blade sharpener. There is alchemy in the game, and rather than just clicking through the interface, Henry must go to an alchemist station. Follow the recipe precisely. These cooking escapades involve putting the right ingredient into a cauldron in the right order. Perhaps grinding down the ingredient or boiling it for a certain amount of time. Possibly distilling it, if necessary. If it sounds complicated, it actually really is. Pickpocketing has a minigame as well. It's a two-part minigame. In the first part, the player must set the timer for the minigame. The longer they are able to hold on to the victim's purse, the longer they will have. In part 2, they need to settle on the items to take. But the system is intentionally awkward, and they must get everything out before the timer runs out if they don't want to get caught. There's a lockpicking minigame as well. The player can also play dice with some of the NPCs, which is one way to earn money early in the game. It's also a medical minigame. Apparently Henry is somewhat of a Renaissance man and has medical knowledge on top of his other many talents. Often his services as a doctor are required. Reading is also a bit of an adventure for Henry. There are skill books around the land, but he must sit down and spend the time to read the books in order to gain their benefits. The books look cool as well. Henry can also sleep with women, mostly bath maidens, but some NPCs as well, and he gets positive benefits for doing so. New elements of immersion make their way into the equipment and stats section for Henry as well. Henry is something of a complex machine for the player to pilot. He has many meters and stats and knobs, which the player needs to pay attention to. Henry can get tired and needs to sleep. He gets hungry and must eat. But the food has a meter as well and might spoil, so don't eat rotten food or Henry will get sick. Henry can get drunk if he drinks too much alcohol. He also gets dirty very quickly and needs to wash often. If he is hit with a sword, he can start bleeding. I discovered this the hard way when I had finally managed to win one of my first sword fights on the road. I headed back to the inn to rest, only to die in the courtyard because I had bled out. You can really tell Warhorse's knowledge of medieval warfare and combat when you start to get into the armor. There is different armor for each part of the body, and they each have their own armor rating for during battles. Putting on Henry's armor is like assembling a puzzle, because you must put certain items on before others. Just as Henry's body, there are multiple stats for the clothes Henry wears. Durability. If you lose too much durability, your clothes might permanently lose quality. There are also stats for charisma, noise, noticeability, stealth. You can have 3 preset looks for Henry, and I used all 3 of them. One for combat, one for stealth, and one for general conversation. The clothes also will get dirty. Combat is probably the hardest system to learn in KCD2. Characters can attack from different angles, and the player must properly block and dodge incoming attacks. Stamina affects Henry's ability to parry, and he'll stop being able to block or dodge when he runs out of stamina. There are also special combos Henry can do, and there are multiple weapons the player can use. Though, I think the sword is probably the best. I've heard some people compare the game to a Souls-like because the combat system is hard to learn, and you can die easily, but once you get the hang of it, it's really not that hard. It's definitely more Scrolls-like than Souls-like, I'd say. Because any difficulty in the combat system comes from the designer's desire for greater immersion and lifelike sword fighting. When it comes down to it, the battles play out more like a sports game, like a boxing game, than a typical RPG sorter. As the player gets better at the combat, the game starts to throw more difficult encounters as well. Enemies will have full plate mail and be more skilled with their weapons, and they will attack in larger groups. Strategy plays an important element in these battles. Enemies in full armor can take a long time to bring to low health, but flanking enemies can be a powerful technique to shorten the battle. Henry's dog can aid in that. Though he might not bring down the more difficult enemies, he can distract them for long enough for Henry to get an attack in. If all else fails, there is always poison as well. All these complex systems can be overwhelming to learn in the beginning. The game has a steeper learning curve because it's a unique game. If you haven't played the game before, you can expect to die at least a few times as you learn the ropes. Early game, I really felt the fear of being a peasant in medieval days. I was afraid to travel because the forests were just swarming with bandits. The game does feel natural eventually. It's a joy to wander around the countryside in this game. You really learn to appreciate the slow moments when nobody is trying to kill you or bully you. And the game's graphics are unmatched, at least when they aren't glitching out. All the talk about dying and combat makes the game sound extremely difficult and scary, but it's actually very peaceful and slow most of the time. A lot of the game is spent wandering around villages and farms and helping people with rather mundane tasks. The game manages to make these dull moments entertaining with its good graphics and unique humor and well-written side quests. All the side quests are good. There is a tendency for the game to talk a bit too much though. Sometimes the dialogue runs a little too long and the game just basically starts lecturing the player about trivial details of life in the Middle Ages. Like you're at a live theater history reenactment or something. It's like, come on, I just want to play the game. Not all the special systems are an improvement. Personally, I hated the save system in this game. In order to save, such as before battle, the player needs to use a potion called Savior Schnapps. This can be crafted, but getting the ingredients is hard early in the game, and the potion is somewhat expensive to buy for an early game player as well. As you level up, there is plenty of money for the schnapps, so it's not a big deal in the long run. The game effectively punishes a player in the early game though, when they are most likely to already be having a hard time learning the game. There is only one difficulty mode in the game, so if you're having a hard time and you need to restart a lot, it's going to be brutal. People are also generally very rude. They may not see Henry as a lord, but do they need to treat him so cruelly all the time? Does no one have any sense of basic decency in medieval Bohemia? There are also an inordinate number of bandits in the countryside. I believe there are more bandits in the woods surrounding the villages than the entire population of the country. I get that the bandits are the main threat in the game, and without them there wouldn't be much combat, and it seems very silly for there to be just so many bandits. This is a complaint I have from other games as well, but I just don't like durability meters on items. It's just annoying. Real objects just don't break that often. If they do, it's fairly rare. It's one thing if it's armor getting banged up all day, but must we really repair the boots and pants after a few days? There are also some visual glitches and oddities. Faces repeat a lot. I really think they could have added more faces. Also, sometimes the camera angle during dialogue is super awkward. It might be behind a wall or in someone's body and you can't see anything, or it might just not be centered on the speaker at all for no reason. I played the game on PS5. Sometimes the lighting bugs out, like a strobe light, especially during night at rainstorms. It's just kind of freaky. Villagers and NPCs are also way too sensitive in this game. They go aggro every time you open up a wrong door. And sometimes guards will just start to aggro you for no reason at all. There is also a weird combat bug on the PlayStation, where if you try to Master Strike on the first strike in battle, it always fails. Very annoying. Sometimes people's eyes just bug out randomly as well. Sometimes there is a quest marker on the map, but the NPC doesn't have anything to give you for quests. There was a point in the game where everyone was telling me I was stinky, even though I had just bathed. It was very, very annoying. There was an update recently, so some of these glitches may and probably have already been fixed. Some other annoying things about the game. The dog is super annoying when doing stealth. Can it please just know that I am sneaking and not run up to the closest guard every single time, drawing their attention? You cannot wait or fast travel with a stolen horse. This was super annoying when trying to sell horses to the gypsies, because I had to wait all night for the guy to wake up. One day in-game is 96 real-world minutes, so I ended up waiting almost a full half hour for the guy to wake up, just standing in the dark. Charisma is really OP in this game. You can just commit crimes, and if Henry is moderately proficient in speechcraft, he can basically talk his way out of everything. Not really annoying, just OP, but this does offset the harsh save system, and it is often very funny to watch Henry come up with some stupid lie to get out of trouble. One thing the game gets right is the houses. They are more developed than houses in most games. Almost every house has actual bedrooms and bathrooms, kitchens, sitting areas. They look very livable, especially for the medieval times. The interface and the map in this game is also worth mentioning. It is a beautiful work of art. Things move around and click, and the map is literally a medieval manuscript painting. Something I find funny about the game is that while you appear to be some sort of knight, most quests in this game are people asking Henry to just commit crimes blatantly. The quests are all well written and fun, but perhaps there could have been some less crime-oriented quests for the protagonist. Does every villager just have a crime and they're just waiting for some wanderer to come to ask them to commit it? Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is truly an amazing game. It is the most immersive, big RPG I have ever played. I played all the side quests and ended up spending 140 hours in my single playthrough, and I could have kept going. The game is slow and steady, but I found it more entertaining than a game with non-stop action, but repetitive gameplay. There are slow moments in the game, and it can get tiresome listening to some of the overlong dialogue, or being forced to blacksmith another dang horseshoe. Henry and the other characters are hilarious, and the graphics are amazing. I want them to take this game engine and make more games with it, because I just want to keep playing in this world. But was the game immersive enough? The game adds a lot of realism, but could there be more realism? I think Henry should have to go to the bathroom as well. Also, he never suffers any consequences for going out in the rain. His clothes could get wet, and he could catch a chill. For that matter, he also never gets sunburned. We also have no idea about Henry's emotional state. There could be meters for his motivational status. Henry spends a lot of time alone. Does he ever get lonely, depressed? Does he ever feel hopeless or experience existential dread? Does he experience frustration? Contentment? Does he get horny, angry? Does he get excited? Also, why do all the clothes in the world fit Henry? Does nobody have a different size shoe? These are things we need to know, Warhorse. We need more meters for Henry. Thanks for watching my review of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. If you have any thoughts about the game, or any other games for that matter, let me know down in the comments.